The station clock showed 3 a.m. when the knock came. It was not loud. It was not angry. It was careful. Almost weak. Ethan Cole woke suddenly, his breath sharp, his heart already beating fast. Life on Station Helios 9 was quiet at night. Too quiet. Knocks at this hour usually meant trouble, death, or both. He sat up slowly in his small bed, listening. There it was again. 3 soft knocks. Ethan rubbed his face and stood up. The metal floor was cold under his feet. He reached for the small light on the wall but stopped himself. Years of military service had taught him caution. Instead, he moved toward the door and activated the security screen. The image appeared, and Ethan froze. A woman stood outside his door. She was tall and elegant even while leaning against the wall for support. Her skin shimmered with a strange silver-blue glow, not human at all. Long white hair fell loosely over her shoulders. Her clothes were torn and dark with alien blood. Her eyes were closed, her breathing shallow. Ethan felt his throat go dry. "She's Varelian," he whispered. He knew that species. Everyone did. The Varelian Empire ruled half the known systems. Powerful, proud, dangerous. And this woman was not just Virelian. The symbol on her broken chest. Peace confirmed it. Royal blood. Ethan's first instinct was to step back, to call station security, to lock the door and pretend he had never seen her. Helping her could destroy his life. Helping her could start a war. Another knock came so faint it was almost nothing. Her eyes opened. They were beautiful, bright, full of pain and fear. "Please," she said softly, her voice shaking. "I know you are there." Ethan swallowed hard. "I was told," she continued, "that humans do not ignore suffering." He closed his eyes. Damn it. He unlocked the door. The moment it opened, the woman collapsed forward. Ethan caught her just in time, surprised by how light she was. Her body trembled as he pulled her inside and closed the door behind them. "You're safe," he said, more to himself than to her. "For now." He lowered her onto his small couch. Up close, the injuries were worse. Deep plasma burns. Cuts that glowed faintly where blood met air. She had been hunted. Ethan activated his signal jammer and grabbed his emergency med kit. "What's your name?" he asked gently as he scanned her wounds. She struggled to focus. "Celira," she whispered. "Princess Celira of Varelia." He nodded. "Yeah, I figured." Her lips curved into a weak smile. "Then you know what happens to humans who interfere in royal affairs." "I do," Ethan replied, applying a seal to a bleeding wound. "And you know what happens to people who bleed out on my couch." She watched him closely as he worked. His hands were steady. His face was tense but kind. "You are not afraid?" she asked. "I am," he answered honestly. "Just not enough to let you die." For the first time since she arrived, her eyes softened. Outside the apartment, hidden cameras adjusted their focus. Far away, across impossible distances. Ancient systems activated on the Varelian throne world. Queen Valis stood before a massive holoscreen. As the live footage began to play, she saw her daughter. Bleeding. She saw a human sheltering her, and she felt disbelief crash into her like a storm. "This is impossible," the Queen whispered. But the footage did not lie. At 3 a.m., a human had opened his door. And the galaxy had just taken its first step toward change. Celira woke to warmth. For a moment, she thought she was dreaming. The sharp pain in her body had softened into a dull ache. The cold fear that had chased her through metal corridors was gone. Instead, she felt a strange calm, broken only by the quiet hum of a human station at night. She opened her eyes slowly. The ceiling above her was low and plain, made of gray metal panels. Soft yellow light filled the small room. It was not a palace. It was not even elegant, but it was safe. She turned her head slightly and saw Ethan sitting on a chair beside the couch. His elbows rested on his knees, his hands clasped together. Dark circles framed his tired eyes. A half-empty medical kit lay open on the floor. He was watching the door. "You are awake," he said quietly when he noticed her moving. "Yes," Salira replied. Her voice was weak but steady. "I did not expect to be." Ethan gave a small smile. "Neither did I, but humans are stubborn. We don't give up easily." She tried to sit up and winced in pain. Instantly, Ethan stood and gently pressed her shoulder. "Don't," he said. "Your body has taken enough punishment for one night." She obeyed, surprised by how easily she trusted his touch. "You risk much by helping me," she said after a moment. "The hunters will not stop." "I know," Ethan replied. "That's why I jammed the signals. For now they can't track you." "For now," she repeated softly. Silence filled the room. The kind of silence that carried unspoken fear. Salira studied him carefully. Humans were often described as loud and reckless. But this one was quiet, thoughtful. His emotions showed clearly on his face: concern, tension, and something else she did not expect. Compassion. Double quotes. "Why did you open the door?" she asked. Ethan looked away. "Because you asked for help," he said. "And because my mother taught me something simple." "What is that?" "If someone knocks on your door bleeding," he said, "you don't ask who they are first. You help." Salira felt a strange tightness in her chest. In her empire, mercy was weakness. Power was survival. Doors were guarded, not opened. "You know I am your enemy," she said quietly. Ethan shook his head. "You're a person first. Titles come later." She closed her eyes, letting those words sink deep. Far away, on the Varelian throne world, Queen Valis watched the footage in silence. The human's words echoed through the chamber. "You're a person first." The queen's fingers tightened around her staff. She was raised among warriors. An advisor said nervously, "Humans are manipulating her." "No," Queen Valis replied slowly. "That human does not manipulate. He protects." Back in the apartment, Salira's breathing suddenly changed. Her skin shimmered, flashing bright blue for a second. Ethan noticed immediately. "What's wrong?" "They are close," she whispered. "My kind can sense each other." Ethan cursed under his breath and moved to the window, peering out into the dark station corridor. "I won't let them take you," he said firmly. "You cannot fight them alone," Salira replied. "If they capture you, you will suffer." Ethan turned back to her. "Then I guess we both suffer," he said. "But you won't face it alone." Salira stared at him, her eyes shining with something more than pain now. Hope. Outside, unseen in the shadows, silent hunters adjusted their weapons. Inside, a human made a choice that would echo across the stars, and the queen continued to watch, her belief in the galaxy slowly beginning to change. On the distant throne world of Varelia, Queen Valis did not sleep. She never did anymore. Age had sharpened her mind, but it had also filled her with endless caution. Every movement of her daughter, every flicker of danger across the empire, was recorded. And when the emergency feed lit up her massive holoscreen, she expected chaos. What she saw instead froze her in place. A small human apartment. A human male crouched beside her daughter, gently tending her wounds. Every motion careful, precise. Every word quiet and calm. "Your hands." "They are warm," Salira said softly, her voice weak. Ethan smiled faintly, brushing a stray lock of her white hair from her face. "Better than the cold of the station," he said. "Better than fear." The queen leaned forward, her claws tightening on her throne's armrests. Humans were unpredictable, dangerous, reckless, but mercy. This human had shown mercy. Her daughter, Princess Salira, Her bloodline was alive because of him. Alive because he chose compassion over fear, over politics, over the entire empire that would reward him for handing her over. Her advisors whispered among themselves, unease in their voices. "They are dangerous," one said, pointing at the screen. "He could be a trap." Humans lie, manipulate. Valis raised a hand to silence them. She could see it. She could feel it, even from thousands of light years away. This human was different. He was honest. He was brave. He risked everything he had for her daughter's life, for nothing in return. A flicker of emotion she thought she had buried long ago surfaced: pride and fear. She had spent centuries teaching Celira how to survive in a galaxy of killers, teaching her to expect cruelty. Yet here was a human, fragile by comparison, who had rewritten the rules with nothing but kindness and courage. The feed captured the small, tender moments, Ethan applying a makeshift bandage, murmuring to ease her pain. Celira's trembling fingers brushing against his sleeve, a silent question. Why would a human help me, knowing who I am? Valis's chest tightened. He didn't just help. He stood between her daughter and death itself. And he didn't pause for fear. He didn't hesitate for reward. The sheer purity of the act, the selfless courage, was alien, almost incomprehensible to the Queen. And then Celira spoke again. "You know who I am." "Yes," Ethan replied, steady and calm. "And I still help." Valis leaned back in her throne, silence heavy in the council chamber. Even her advisors knew better than to speak. The feed showed what they had not been taught to expect: a human who could rise above fear and politics. A human who could be more than a soldier. For the first time, the Queen realized that her empire had judged an entire species too quickly. Humans were dangerous, yes, but they were also capable of acts no empire could command. Far below, in that small apartment, Celira relaxed slightly for the first time. She still hurt, but she no longer felt the icy weight of fear pressing down on her chest. This human had given her safety, and in doing so, he had given her something greater, a reminder that hope still exists. Valis's eyes narrowed as the footage continued. "He is teaching her something I cannot," she whispered. "Not fear, not strategy, but faith in life itself." Her advisors shifted uncomfortably. Some tried to rationalize it, to dismiss it. But the Queen's mind was already made up. That human Ethan Cole was not just protecting her daughter. He was showing her empire a lesson it had forgotten in its hunger for power. And far across the galaxy, in that quiet human apartment, neither of them knew it yet. But the choices made that night, in the shadow of fear and the hum of distant machines, would echo for centuries. A door had opened at 3 a.m., and with it, a new story of courage and humanity had begun, one that even a Queen could not ignore. Ethan was not a man who panicked easily. Years in the Terran Defense Force had taught him to stay calm in chaos, to analyze, to act. Yet, the moment he heard it, a low mechanical hum, distant but growing, his body tensed instantly. "They're close," Celira whispered, her hand tightening over his sleeve. Her voice was steady, but the glow in her skin pulsed faster. She could sense her kind hunters moving through the shadows, their predatory instincts guiding them straight to her. Ethan cursed softly under his breath. "Damn it, they found you faster than I hoped." Celira's eyes flashed silver blue. "They will kill anyone in their way. And they do not hesitate. You cannot fight them alone." He shook his head. "Maybe, but I'm not letting them take you without a fight." A series of metallic clicks echoed down the station corridor. The hunters were coming, silent and lethal. Their weapons glimmered faintly in the dim light. They moved as one, a synchronized killing machine, trained to overpower almost any resistance. Ethan moved to the door, pressed himself flat against the wall, and whispered, "Stay down." He reached into his jacket and activated a small emergency beacon implanted under his skin. A direct call to the Terran Marines. They were outnumbered, outgunned, but the Marines never ignored a call for help. The door shook violently as the first hunters slammed against it. The metal groaned. Ethan's hand tightened on the small plasma pistol he never liked to use. "You will not touch her," he muttered under his breath. Celira's fingers brushed his hand, a silent plea. Her trust was complete, even as fear threatened to tear at her insides. "Ethan," she said softly. "Don't," he interrupted, his voice firm but calm. "I've got this." The door burst inward in a flash of blue energy. Hunters poured into the room like shadows made solid. Their eyes locked onto Celira instantly. But Ethan positioned himself between her and them, standing taller than he looked, his body tense and ready. "Step aside." "Human," the leader hissed. "This does not concern you." "It does now," Ethan said simply. The hunters laughed, sharp and metallic, confident in their superiority. Humans were smaller, weaker, unpredictable, but easy to control. They did not account for stubbornness. Ethan dodged the first strike, rolling to the side as the plasma whip lit the floor where he had just been standing. His hands moved with precision, disarming, deflecting, and countering. Every movement was fueled by a singular purpose: keep her safe. Celira watched, eyes wide, heart pounding not from fear alone, but awe. Humans fought differently from her kind. They did not fight for honor or glory or empire. They fought because they cared, because they refused to let someone else die if they could stop it. A plasma bolt streaked toward her. Ethan lunged, catching it with a narrow metal shield he had grabbed from the wall. Sparks danced in the small room. Pain seared his arm, but he did not drop the shield. Behind them, the emergency beacon's hum grew louder. Distant shouts, metallic boots pounding, filled the corridor. Terran Marines were arriving. The hunters hissed in frustration, realizing the tide was shifting. But they pressed on, relentless as predators, aiming to finish what they had started. Ethan's face was smeared with soot and blood, but his eyes never left her. "Hold on," he said. "Help is coming." Celira's chest glowed faintly in response, a signal she could not hide. She was alive because of him. Alive because he chose to fight when surrender was safer. On the throne world, Queen Valis watched the feed, her breath caught in her throat. She had seen warriors, generals, and kings falter. She had seen humans labeled weak, emotional, and reckless. But not this. A human standing alone against trained killers outnumbered, outgunned, bleeding protecting her daughter because he chose to. Her advisors shifted nervously. "Mother, he will die." "He will not," Valis whispered, voice tight. "He cannot die. Not yet. Not if he is human." Inside the small apartment, sparks flew, metal screeched, and Celira realized something profound. This human, fragile and imperfect, was teaching her what courage truly was. Not strategy, not rank, not fear. Pure courage. And the galaxy, silent beyond the station walls, was watching it all unfold. The corridor outside erupted in chaos. Terran Marines stormed in, moving with precision, cutting off the hunters before they could reach the small apartment. Plasma bolts ricocheted off walls, sparks flew, and smoke filled the air. Ethan did not pause. He moved like a storm, each step calculated, each action focused on keeping Celira safe. The hunters hissed in frustration, realizing their advantage had vanished. Their numbers counted for nothing against the sudden human reinforcements. One by one, they fell back, retreating toward the dark corners of the station, disappearing into shadows where the Marines could not reach them. Finally, the room was silent again. The only sound was the shallow, uneven breathing of Celira and the ragged panting of Ethan. He slumped against the wall, exhaustion pressing down on him. pain radiating from bruised arms and cuts that burned with every breath. Salira moved toward him, her glowing eyes wide with concern. You should not have stayed. You could have been killed." Ethan forced a weak smile, wiping blood from his forehead. "Yeah, probably. But I can't let you face that alone." His voice was hoarse but steady. "I told you. Humans don't walk away from someone in need. Doesn't matter if they are a princess or a stranger. Doesn't matter if it's the middle of the night." She knelt beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. The glow from her skin pulsed faintly, reflecting worry, relief, and gratitude all at once. You risked everything for me. For no reason but kindness." Ethan shrugged, pain flashing across his face, but he nodded. "No reason. I don't like bullies." A small laugh escaped her lips, despite the pain and fear. It was the first real smile she had allowed herself in days. "You are strange, human. And you're strange too," he replied, wincing as he shifted slightly. "But I like it." Outside the apartment, the Marines secured the corridor. Salira's presence had been a secret until now, and no one could track her through the station without triggering alarms. But her body still shimmered faintly with stress. She had been hunted. She had been close to death. And yet she survived not because of her own power, but because one human had refused to ignore her. Salira's breathing began to slow. She studied him carefully, noting the scars forming along his arms and the blood dried on his sleeves. Every line of his face told a story: exhaustion, fear, and determination. And through it all, she saw something stronger than all the weapons and armies of her empire. Courage. "You could have left," she said softly, "and no one would have blamed you." Ethan shook his head, still struggling to sit upright. "I can't leave someone bleeding on my floor. Can't do it. Not when I have the chance to help." Her eyes glistened with tears, faintly glowing as she reached for his hand. "Your people, your species, are not what we were told. They are better, braver, kind, and Her voice broke slightly. "I am grateful beyond words." Ethan gave a tired, crooked smile. "Hey, you don't have to thank me. Just promise me something. That you'll survive. That you'll keep fighting, even if it's hard." "I promise," she said, squeezing his hand. "I promise I will." In that moment, something shifted in Salira. Fear still lingered, but hope had begun to bloom. Hope that even in a galaxy filled with power and betrayal, someone, maybe even a species, could choose compassion over conquest. Back on Varelia, Queen Valis watched the footage with her fingers tight around the edge of her throne. Her daughter alive, protected by a human. And not because of orders, not because of politics, but because he chose to act out of courage, mercy, and love for life itself. "Humans," she whispered. "Maybe we judge them too harshly." Her advisors looked at her in surprise. "Mother," one began. "No," she interrupted firmly. "Watch, learn, and remember. One choice can change the course of everything." Meanwhile, Ethan and Salira finally allowed themselves a moment of quiet. He leaned back, breathing heavily, and she rested her head on his shoulder briefly. Neither spoke, but neither needed to. Words were unnecessary. The act itself, the choice to stay, to fight, to protect, had spoken louder than any declaration or order. In that small, battered apartment on Station Helios 9, under dim lights and the echo of distant alarms, a bond formed. Not of politics or rank or empire, but of trust, respect, and shared courage. And far away, the Queen realized the truth she had never expected. Sometimes, the bravest warriors were not those with crowns or armies. Sometimes, the bravest warriors were human. At 3 a.m., one human had opened a door and changed everything. Queen Valis had seen thousands of battles in her long life. But she had never seen one like this, from her throne on the high towers of Varelia. She watched the footage again and again. Each frame burned into her mind. A human, small, fragile, bleeding, and yet unyielding, stood between her daughter and death. Her daughter, Princess Celira, injured and exhausted, safe because of him. Not orders, not weapons, not strategy, just choice, courage, mercy, humanity. Her advisors murmured nervously around her. Mother, we cannot allow this. She is our heir. He is human. He risks everything for her. It could be dangerous. Valis's piercing eyes swept over them, icy and sharp. Dangerous? Perhaps. But he is right. He did not act out of politics. He acted because it was the right thing to do. And in that choice, he has taught us something no treaty or law ever could. One advisor tried to interject. Queen, we have always considered humans unstable, reckless, too emotional to be allies. She held up a hand, silencing him. And yet, this human, outnumbered, outgunned, faced trained hunters, and he protected her. He did not seek glory. He did not demand reward. He chose compassion over fear, over survival, over caution. Tell me, what lesson is greater than that? Her voice softened, almost a whisper. Perhaps we have underestimated humanity for too long. Perhaps it is not strength of arms that defines a species, but strength of heart. The council fell silent. Some were shocked. Some were still skeptical. But Valis's mind was made. She had watched the proof. She had seen the courage, the honor, the nobility that humans carried, hidden, unpredictable, yet undeniable. Prepare a message, she said finally. A decree. Effective immediately. Humanity will no longer be treated as a threat. They are to be honored as allies, guardians, protectors. Those who act with honor and courage deserve recognition, not suspicion. The advisors gasped. One whispered, Mother. This changes everything. Yes, Valis said quietly, her gaze returning to the feed. Ethan Cole, bruised and battered, had finally allowed Celira to rest. He looked ordinary in every way, no armor, no crown, no insignia of rank. Just a human choosing to protect another life, even when it meant risking his own. Everything, she repeated that far away. Celira slowly recovered, guided by the human who had saved her. She watched him carefully, noticing every scar, every wound, every tremble in his hands as he treated her injuries. And she felt something she had never allowed herself to feel before. Trust. Complete trust in another being who did not belong to her empire. Did not answer to her throne, but acted with honor beyond rank or species. The queen leaned back in her throne, thinking of her daughter, thinking of the human who had defied every expectation. Perhaps the galaxy is not only ours to rule, she murmured. Perhaps we are meant to learn. Perhaps we are meant to follow their example. Valis called for a private communicator. Her finger hovered over the controls, but she did not speak immediately. She wanted to see her daughter, to hear her voice, to understand what she had witnessed. And when Celira appeared on the holoscreen, still glowing faintly from stress, but alive, Valis's heart, hardened by centuries, softened. Mother, Celira said, her voice trembling slightly, he saved me. Not for reward, not for fame. He just saved me. Valis's lips pressed into a thin line. She nodded slowly. I saw everything. And I have learned. Humanity is extraordinary. The council watched silently as the queen made her decision. It was unprecedented. It was bold. It was dangerous. But she did not hesitate. Because in one small human apartment at 3 a.m., one man had shown the galaxy what courage and honor really meant. Prepare the announcement, she said. Let every system know. The Varelian Empire recognizes humanity as protectors, as allies, as beings of strength, not just in power, but in spirit. Let them see that one choice, one single act of courage, can change everything. Her gaze lingered on the screen a moment longer, on the human who had risked everything for her daughter. "He has not only saved my child," she whispered. "He has saved the soul of the galaxy." Far away, Ethan rested on a cot in the small apartment, unaware of the decree being prepared, unaware that his actions had already reshaped alliances, rewritten histories, and challenged centuries of prejudice. In that quiet, ordinary human apartment, Celira sat beside him, her hand brushing his arm gently. And for the first time in centuries, Queen Valis allowed herself to believe that hope true. Unshakable hope could come from the most unexpected of places. The galaxy had witnessed one human choice, and now it would never be the same. Months had passed since the night of chaos. On Station Helios 9, the station was quieter now, repaired and polished, almost ordinary. But Ethan knew it would never feel the same. He had carried scars, both visible and hidden, and memories that refused to fade. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the silver-blue glow of Celira's skin, the fear in her eyes. And the moment she had trusted him completely, he sat in his small apartment, sipping a cup of recycled tea, thinking about how a single knock at 3 a.m. had changed his life forever. The galaxy beyond the walls seemed distant, almost unreal. But he knew the truth. The galaxy had shifted because of that night. A soft vibration at the door pulled him from his thoughts. He frowned. It was late, too late for visitors. Yet, a small spark of curiosity made him rise. He moved to the door and checked the security screen. Celira stood there, fully healed. No blood, no injuries. No royal armor, no insignia. Just a woman alive, smiling, simple and human in her posture. If one ignored her alien glow, "You're late," Ethan said with a tired smile, opening the door. She laughed softly, a sound like water over stone, gentle and warm. "No blood this time," she said, stepping inside. Her hand brushed his lightly, a gesture that carried a lifetime of gratitude, respect, and unspoken connection. Ethan shook his head. "Good. I was running out of bandages." They sat together on the couch, quiet for a moment. Outside, the station hummed, lights blinking softly. Everything seemed calm, almost ordinary, but Ethan knew it would never be ordinary again. "Do you know what your actions did?" Celira asked softly, her glowing eyes fixed on his. "I saved you," he said simply. "Isn't that enough?" She shook her head. "No, you saved more than me. You saved hope. You saved the lesson the galaxy needed to remember. My mother, the Queen. She will never see humans the same way again. Not after you." Ethan looked down, embarrassed. "I didn't do it for recognition. I just did what felt right. That is why it mattered," she said. Her voice trembled slightly. "You acted without calculation, without orders, without reward. That is rare. That is human." And she saw it. Ethan let her words sink in. The galaxy beyond, the empires, the alliances, they all existed. But in that small apartment, in that quiet moment, none of it mattered. Only the choices they made, only the courage to act when fear pressed down, only the willingness to protect life mattered. Celira reached out and took his hand. "One day, your people will understand what you taught me. They will see that strength is not only in weapons or armies. It is in heart, in choice, in mercy." Ethan squeezed her hand gently, thinking of the hunters, the Marines, the endless danger that had nearly claimed her life. "I hope they learn it soon," he said quietly. "Because if not, the galaxy will keep making the same mistakes over and over." Far away, on Varelia, Queen Valis had watched the footage countless times. She had issued the decree, Humanity was no longer a threat, but an ally, a protector, a species capable of courage and honor that rivaled any empire. And yet, she still marveled at it. One human. One choice. One act of mercy had changed her perspective, changed alliances, and perhaps changed the course of the galaxy. Back in the apartment, Celira looked at Ethan, her glowing eyes soft. "Do you know," she said quietly, "that the galaxy now remembers your name?" Ethan raised an eyebrow. "I'm not sure I want it to." She laughed, leaning back against the couch. "It does. You showed us all something we forgot. You reminded us that even in darkness, even in fear, courage and mercy can shine brighter than any weapon." Ethan felt a warmth in his chest he couldn't name. Pride? Relief? Perhaps both. But more than that, he felt a quiet certainty. The galaxy was vast, full of danger, full of conflict. But humanity, his people, could rise above. They could protect, they could inspire, they could change worlds. He looked at Celira, who met his gaze without fear. She was no longer a princess hiding from hunters. She was a survivor, a student of courage, a witness to the truth of humanity. "Come on," he said with a tired smile, standing and offering his hand. "Let's get some sleep before anyone else decides to knock on this door at 3 a.m. She took his hand, smiling fully now, unafraid, free. Outside the window, the stars stretched endlessly across the galaxy. Somewhere, Queen Valis watched quietly, knowing that the choices of one human had reshaped everything. One knock, one act, one human, and the galaxy would never forget. It. Because humanity did not conquer, humanity protected, and one small apartment on Station Helios 9 had reminded the universe of that truth forever. At 3 a.m. A door opened, and with it, hope spread across the stars.